From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is U.S. Farm Report.
Welcome to U.S. Farm Report. This weekend, we're on the road from the 50th Annual Missouri Governor's Conference on Agriculture, and here's what's in store over the next 60 minutes. The garden spot for growing cotton this year.
I haven't had a year in 28 years, 29 years maybe, now that I have seen as good growing conditions as we had this year.
$4 million to fuel the food and beverage industry across the Show Me state.
We've got to figure out how to get more out of the existing footprint that Missouri already does a great job with. And so value added is a term that really means a lot.
How one program is helping farmers and small businesses grow to new heights. A trip around the globe to the Super Bowl of ag equipment shows.
Advantages with electrification is I have high torque available at low RPM, and it's instant.
From dealing with chokes in the supply chain to now unlocking what's next. Our first time visiting Agritechnica, and we're taking you along for the ride.
U.S. Farm Report, presented by Pioneer. What's next happens when experience meets expertise. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
Now for the news. President Biden meeting this week with the leader of our biggest U.S. ag buyer, China. The two leaders meeting in Silicon Valley on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum in San Francisco. The last time President Biden spoke in person with Xi Jinping was a year ago in Bali. Mr. Biden saying ahead of the high-stakes summit, he hoped Wednesday's meeting would put the U.S.-China relationship on steadier footing. White House officials said they didn't expect a long list of outcomes. Instead, the primary objective appeared to be restoring channels of communication.
I value our conversation because I think it's paramount that you and I understand each other clearly, leader to leader, with no misconceptions or miscommunication. We have to ensure that competition does not veer into conflict. And we also have to manage it responsibly, that competition. That's what the United States wants and what we intend to do.
Xi, speaking through a translator, said the relationship between China and the U.S. has never been smooth, but has kept moving forward, saying, quote, for two large countries like China and the United States, turning their back on each other is not an option, end quote. That meeting between the two sides apparently helped spur purchases of U.S. soybeans. China bought around 3 million metric ton of soybeans, or 110 million bushels from the U.S. last week, a volume that reportedly surprised the market. They added another 7.5 million bushels on Monday. That's even though U.S. soybeans are more expensive than Brazilian supplies and processing margins are weak. The purchases were seen as a goodwill gesture ahead of Xi's meeting with President Biden.
My mindset is their pork industry is in tough enough shape. Their deflation is bad enough. Their consumer is stalled out since the zero COVID policy that they really don't need to buy extra. What they're probably looking and fishing for is some cash injection, some foreign direct investment, because that has been pulled out dramatically from the Chinese economy, and it's really hurting them. And I think President Xi knows that.
The head of world trading at Cargill, the world's largest agricultural commodities trader, indicates China is purchasing more than it needs for domestic use, signaling it's seeking to build stockpiles. But other sources indicate that Sinograin has a dual role of crushing beans and managing reserve stocks for the government, and Xi's visit is the only logical reason that they would pay a big premium over Brazil beans, because crushers don't pay above market prices. A plan to avert a government shutdown and extend the current farm bill moved its way through Washington this week. New Republican Speaker Mike Johnson of Louisiana forced to reach across the aisle to Democrats when hard-right conservatives came out against the plan. The measure includes an extension of the 2018 Farm Bill through September of next year. Democratic Representative Mark Pocan of Wisconsin supporting it, warning that without the Farm Bill extension, milk prices would have soared and hurt producers back in his home state. Johnson's proposal to temporarily fund the government into the new year passed on a bipartisan tally, with 93 Republicans voting against it.
I was very disappointed that last second he added the farm bill and actually punted till the next fiscal year, till October, because this is a very important bill where we need to look how we can improve competition in farming, it's health of Americans, how we can help smaller farmers, and also how we can have Americans healthier and have better food. So I think we need to think about things like that, and I was very disappointed that we decided to punt this issue.
The legislation sets up two funding deadlines. Agriculture, along with the energy and water and others, would be funded through January 19th. The rest of the federal government would be funded until February 2nd. Well, Arkansas's Attorney General says Syngenta has paid a $280,000 fine to the state. Attorney General Tim Griffin says the fine was for failing to report in a timely manner Syngenta's ownership of a 160-acre research farm within the state. Griffin says next, Syngenta must divest itself of the land it has owned since 1988 in Craighead County. You'll remember that we told you about last week that state officials told Northrop King Seed Company it had 2 years to divest. It comes after the state legislature passed a law restricting certain foreign party-controlled businesses from having private land in Arkansas. Northrop is a division of Syngenta Seeds, which is owned by ChemChina, which is a Chinese state-owned company. But the head of Syngenta North America has told Farm Journal that nothing illegal has taken place of the farm, and they're still working on next steps. And if they're forced to sell, it would put Arkansas farmers at a disadvantage. The American Farm Bureau Federation is out with its annual survey of how much your Thanksgiving meal will cost. And it says overall, prices are down from last year's record high. It says the classic holiday feast for 10 people averages $61.17 or less than $6.20 per person. That's 4.5% decrease from last year, but it's still 25% higher than it was in 2019 due to high supply costs and inflation. The centerpiece of the feast, the turkey, helped to bring down the overall cost, with the average price for a 16-pound turkey coming in at just over $27 or $1.71 per pound. That's down 5.6% from last year. Meanwhile, pumpkin pie mix and dinner rolls are seeing the largest increase. That's it for the news. Just beautiful weather here in Missouri and much of the Midwest this week. But is that about to change? We'll have a check of your weather coming up next.
Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.